Hi, Mr. Torres. How are you? Good.
George Torres or
I have with me Sherman Trotman, who supervises the residential programs, and also from OPWDD is Charlene. Charlene, I forgot your last name.
Joseph.
Joseph, that's right. Sorry.
It's okay.
So good evening, everyone. My name is Sherelle Cruikshank, and I am the CEO for Human First. Human First is a nonprofit multicultural organization that serves people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We support them to meet their life goals. We've been in existence.
Can be quite loud sometimes.
We've been in existence since 2001, and we provide residential services as well as supports for adult day programs where we teach people various skills so they can eventually become employed. We have a supported employment program. We also provide services within people's homes so that we could support people in their homes and keep them from having to live in group home settings. So we are proposing to open a 4-person individualized residential alternative in the Bronx at 814 Chestnut Street. And these 4 people have actually been living together for quite some time now. They are fairly independent. They do have supervision in terms of staffing. There is a staff that is with them on every shift, but that staff is more there as a support to remind them and of things that they may need to get done, make sure that they stay safe in all that they do, and to support them in any way they may need. So I did send out the 40-day notification, which I know Mr. Torres said he never received. And I actually went back and I looked, tried to track it again, and it says it's still in transit from November 12th, which I find very interesting. So maybe one day you'll get it, but at any rate, it was emailed to Mr. Torres, and he did acknowledge reading it. So we'll use that date to start, the 40-day count. So that's a summary of the information that was provided to the community board. We provided a fact sheet, and we also provided the DSS registry that provides all of the human service and other organizations that you have within Community Board 12.
okay, I saw that. I saw the list. We just will have to check it out. Have you been to 814? Because I haven't. I saw where it is. It's off Gun Hill Road. We're generally very supportive of groups, especially for disabled, having their own place to live and get their independence. A couple of times that we voted them down was because I know in one instance, people that lived nearby thought that the area wasn't safe for them. And there was another reason where the house was right next to a fish market, where the smell was there. And it was, I couldn't believe that people would live there. And I thought it would be a bad situation. I was not able to get to the house yet. And I'm sorry I haven't, but I would like to. It's not far from my house, so I would like to look at it.
Would you like me to describe kind of where it is and where it sits?
Where it is, it's I know it's off.
It's a couple
Gun Hill
of, so
Road.
Yeah, if
Probably
you
near Mike Burke someplace, or Mr. Hall. But I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead. Where is it?
No, that's fine. If you come up Gun Hill Road, um, and you 2 blocks down, you make a right by the school that's there, and you come
Evander
down about
Childs?
maybe yes, and you come down about 4 blocks, and you make a left on Chestnut, and it kind of sits in the middle of the block. It's a two-story home. It is completely detached on both sides. It isn't fenced in the back. There is a small backyard. There's a driveway. The apartment is on the second floor. And it's really just 1 block long. Because then you go to the corner, there's there's the next major road and you can't go across. So it's actually a very nice, quiet residential road.
Is that, I think I looked at the house online. It's the one with the car in the driveway and has a sort of a wall on the side.
It does. So it has like sort of like a patio. So you walk up a set of stairs and you have like a landing there. And then both doors are actually there and one goes up and the other one goes right in.
Now, I realize you're not allowed to discuss their disabilities, but what floor are you taking?
The second floor.
And they are perfectly capable of going, they have good access to it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. What we usually do is we go over the history and background of your company. I'll look at that. I haven't thoroughly done it yet. We do check for the other residents, like residents, make sure that, and I see you sent it. We do have an issue at Community Board 12, but everybody has a different designation, so that we have so many types of homes, and we don't want to be overrun with them for the sake of the community and for the sake of the people that are there. I will personally go to look at that, and basically, if there's any other questions, do you have for me?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
There'll be 4 people. How old are they?
They range between the youngest is in his 20s and the oldest, she's in her 40s.
And they've been living together at a different address.
Yes.
I think I read that they were just being transferred from one facility to, and you decided to take that one. Is that correct?
Yes.
What made you decide to take that one? It was just available, or you?
It was a number of things. One, we tried to find somewhere where it would be convenient for their parents to visit them. Also, we wanted the 4 of them to stay together because they have lived together for quite some time. We needed somewhere that had close transportation because they're used to taking public transportation to wherever they need to go. So we needed somewhere that would be convenient for them to be able to travel easily. And we do work with a number of realtors, and that's one of the landlords that we work with had some apartments available, and that was one of them. We have seen a couple of other places.
All right, let me ask you this. You say they will take public transportation. Which public transportation will they take?
They'll take the train, the Gun Hill train station, which is about, I guess, 5 or 6 blocks away. And they'll take the bus. They take Ubers. They travel That's how they travel.
Okay, that train station might be the worst one in New York City as far as safety. The cops live there during school. It's very quiet now because school is out. But during school, that train station is like ridiculous as far as the crime with the teenagers, and teenagers do that. That what other they really can't go there. I wouldn't feel safe letting anybody go there. Is there another means of transportation they could have?
I mean, they travel on public transportation now. They travel into Harlem. So I'm not that concerned about them being able to travel. They're pretty efficient in what they do, but we could find other means. They could take the bus if they needed to. If we need to figure out them traveling in another means, I guess we could do that.
Excuse me, Mike. You live in that neighborhood. What do you agree with me with that train station, White Plains and Gun Hill?
Well, I mean, I was just there yesterday, so I guess because I know how to take care of myself, I don't worry about it as much. I will say that it can be unscrupulous at times. To your point, when the kids are there, kids will be kids, but I personally don't see it as a danger. As I said, maybe because I know how to take care of myself. But I think if that's just my opinion of Mr. Lanzano. So I think that as long as for instance, if somebody comes up to me, I'll tell them to get the hell away. You know what I mean, or else. So but that's just me.
Yeah,
So,
you're not a disabled person.
Well,
they're disabled, but they're not incapable of taking care of themselves. I mean, we teach them safety training. Like I said, they travel into Harlem. One of them actually go to program and have to go into Harlem to 125th Street to get to where they're going. They go to the gym. They're used to being out in the community, so I'm actually not worried about them. I mean, we start out by travel training them. Staff go with them so that they see where they're going, what they're doing. So if there are really any concerns, then the team would have to come up with another option. Sherman, you have any thoughts about that?
Better unmute yourself, Mr. Sherman.
Yeah, Sherman, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I thought I was unmuted myself. Yeah, well, the people that we support, we teach them life skills in dealing with various types of situations. We have 24-hour staffing, and any place that we assess that would be a danger to them, we would definitely choose alternate means to help them achieve any goals that they have. I know exactly where you're referring to, White Plains and Gun Hill Road. And like Michael said, kids will be kids. Kids have seen what people with disabilities and the supports that they receive, and they're actually very sensitive to that, in my opinion, and through my experience. So I don't see that as being a problem for us.
Excuse me a second, Mike. What I'm going to do is I'm going to call the 47th precinct, and I'm going to see if they would recommend it. Just so you know. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
thanks, Mrs. Lanzano. So I think I'll just add this to Mr. Lanzano, that the Woodlawn Metro North station is a couple of blocks down. I mean, well, about a block down from the number 2 and number 5 line. So if that's a concern, remember that Woodlawn station is right there as well. So I just want to, throw that in the mix.
Well, the Williamsbridge station is right
I mean,
there.
Williamsbridge. Hello, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm wrong.
It's a short walk.
Williamsbridge station. Thank you. Okay.
And they also take the bus, not just the train, but they do also take the bus. So.
Okay, the bus, now you're talking about an express bus, of course.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, I mean, they could take city buses, which is fine, but not if they're going into Harlem. They're gonna have to take an express bus down there.
Right.
Also, if
Okay,
if that station, they
I'm
could take the
telling
bus
you right
down to
now,
Thunder Hill in
I
Boston.
would be afraid for them. But I'll run it through the police department and then.
I mean, we will definitely assess that. And like I said, staff are going to go with them because obviously they're moving to a new place. So staff are going to have to go with them at first, and they're going to have to train them different routes so that they don't know just one way to travel. Because you have to always be careful that, you know, if something happens, they need to have an alternative. They need to understand how, if there's an emergency, what would be the other things that they would do. So they're not going to learn just one way to travel. So if we really felt like that train station was that dangerous, they would be trained to use alternate means of traveling. So
And the other thing, besides being dangerous, they might be subjected to vicious antagonism by the kids and mocking. And again, I don't know what their disabilities are, and the kids might not physically hurt them, but they might seriously abuse them verbally. That's what I'm thinking would happen. I'm going to call the police department and find out. I think you should keep that in mind. That's all.
we'll definitely keep that in mind. And also, honestly, just by looking at them, it's not, I wouldn't say that it's obvious that they have a disability. So for that particular group, I would not actually be worried about them per se.
Okay. Any other comments? Mike? Go ahead.
First of all, thank you. I had to unmute myself, Ms. Lanzanos. First of all, thank you for coming before this committee. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to look at my notes because, as I told our community associate, my email account has been locked by the city. I have no idea why, but it's been locked, so I didn't get a chance to look at the notes. As Mrs. Lanzano said, it is right around the corner from my house. So, I mean, I've passed it on several occasions. And so it's relatively nondescript. And so I guess here's my only question. Normally when an application like this comes before us, they're asking for more than one floor. They're asking for the entire house. But in this case, you're only asking for a floor. And I found that somewhat puzzling for 4 individuals. So, why is that? Excuse me.
Because it's just the 4 of them that we were looking for housing for. So there was no need for us to take the whole house. They currently live in an apartment now. So there's really no other reason beside that. There's no need to take the whole house.
Is the first floor vacant or occupied?
I don't believe so.
You don't believe that?
At least it wasn't vacant when we were looking. And the last time I was there, which was, when were we there, Sherman? A few weeks ago? When we went to see
maybe a month ago.
A month ago? Yeah. No, there were people living downstairs the last time I was there, actually, because the landlord was saying that they've lived there for a long time, and he was telling me a bit about, the family or whatever. So the apartment is not empty downstairs.
Is the house I'm trying to
actually is one of those niche neighborhoods back there that are very nice, but
it seems to be a nice neighborhood. What did you ask me? I'm sorry, Michael.
Well, yeah, no, I was just saying that, as I said, I've seen it before, and I guess I was wondering, that's a 3-story, if I'm not mistaken, right?
No,
It's
two
two
stories.
stories. It's only
It's
two
two. Okay.
apartments.
Okay.
It's high up, but I guess the first floor apartment is lower, and then the other apartment is higher. It looks like it's 3 stories, but
Yeah,
it's
that's what I'm saying.
not.
It looks like it's 3 stories to me. That's why I'm like, wait a minute now, because I go by
Yeah,
there,
it's not.
quite often. So, that was my thing. I guess that was my only question. I get, and like I said, because I know Mr. Lanzano's pretty good at this, so I will, I defer to him, even, although I sit on the committee. Because, let me just let everybody know that the committee has somewhat been reshuffled. There are two members. I was looking to see who's not on this call, who should be, and I'm looking at, and I'm actually now concerned about two of them. Miss Gail Clark is supposed to be here, and she's not, and Miss Carmen Ortiz is supposed to be here, and she's not. As actually, I'm concerned about all three, and Deacon Brown is not here either. So Mr. Jerome Brown, who is a new board member, is here on Mr. Lanzano's committee, and Ms. Judith Benitez, being that she's been doing so many things, is no longer here. So just to let Mr. Lanzano know as himself, myself, and the ex officio role in Mr. Jerome Brown, that's here as committee members. Again, I have the only question that I guess I had was, would that, you're talking about 4 individuals if I read the initial report, correct? So how many square feet are we talking about? And how many bedrooms? Is it 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms? Because to me, it seems like they'll be cramped.
You're muted.
Sorry. It's a 4-bedroom apartment. It has 2 bathrooms, and it has a kitchen, living room, dining room area. So it's not cramped at all.
Okay.
They
Okay.
each have they all have closets in them. There's actually an extra closet in the hallway. It's nicely spread out, actually.
I believe you. Would you know how many square footage off the top of your head? Not that it matters, but
Do not. Charlene, do you know? I don't know off the top of my head.
okay.
I will find that out.
Okay. And I would imagine that they all have jobs, I would imagine, right?
Or they go to some kind of program, yes.
Okay. Okay. Who's responsible for the rent? Would it be your agency, or are they responsible for their own rent to the landlord?
Our agency,
Your
the
agency,
apartment
okay.
is in the agency's name, and we're responsible to pay the rent. We're reimbursed through the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities.
Okay. Now, I know Mr. Lanzano was concerned about, safety at the subway station. I guess I'm not as concerned about that. I guess my question is, when I've seen applications like this before, normally there's somebody who is on premises. Do you guys plan, like I said, because again, I don't have my notes in front of me. Do you guys have that on site or not?
Yes, there's a staff that is with them on every shift.
Okay, so that's just gonna be 5 people in the house.
Yes.
Okay, so I guess my only curiosity with that is, if there's 4 bedrooms, a living room and dining room, so where's that 5th person going to be?
The staff is working, so they're not sleeping. They stay mostly in the living room with them. The individuals have the right to privacy, so they are in their bedrooms on their own. So that's where the staff would be most of the time, in the kitchen with them when they're cooking. They'll go back to check on them periodically, but they're not sleeping. So
Excuse me, does a staff member sleep overnight there or not? Or they just work days?
they don't sleep. They are there overnight, but they do not sleep overnight. There's this. Our staff are overnight awake.
Okay. So you're right. There's going to be 5 people. Each one's going to have his or her bedroom. There's a kitchen, 2 bathrooms. Sounds like actually a pretty big apartment, but and there's somebody on duty 24 hours a day with them. They're able to
There
go,
are times when the apartment will be empty, like when everybody's out at either program or work. So there are times when there's no one in the apartment. As it would with, any family, if they go out to school, to work, there's nobody there.
okay. Now, the question was asked, but do you know specifically who has a job and who's going to a program?
Yes.
Are they all, is any of them working?
Yeah, one person and the rest there. It's not school, it's an adult day habilitation where they go to learn skills and they do volunteer work, and they're out during the day.
That's one, and the other three are going to programs?
Yes.
Okay. And where are those? Those are down in Harlem, all of them?
Yes.
I think Metro North's the ticket there, okay. All right. Any other questions for anybody? Any other comments? And
Yeah, I have two questions. Hi, Cheryl. I don't know if this is a question for you. I am curious about the siding of the thing of the apartment. Miss Joseph said that she was here and she was, I guess, working for the state. What process does the state, or what role does the state play in the site selection of these facilities? I mean, if, for example, we keep harping on the fact that most of their thing is in Harlem, why didn't you find an apartment in Harlem that was closer to their programs?
So, Sherelle, where did you guys come from originally? What was the home that you were at originally?
You mean where they're living now?
Mm-hmm.
They currently live in Manhattan, but the apartment that they've been living in, they can't stay there anymore because the rent has gone way above what we're reimbursed for. So we can't afford to maintain the apartment anymore.
So, in terms of OPWDD, that's one of the things that we look for. We have thresholds of how much an apartment costs and what's comfortable for the agency. We don't want them to get into an apartment that they can't afford. So, Bronx is, from my knowledge, the Bronx is way cheaper than Manhattan. So that's probably one of the reasons why they chose to go to the Bronx. They found a nice home, nice size. Who wouldn't go for it? I wouldn't think so. Basically, we support them in that area. So basically what we do at OPWDD, one of my roles is to make sure that the area is not highly concentrated. So we do concentration checks to make sure that there is not too much concentration of one area. So that's one of the things that they did. And the site passed saturation successfully. That's one of the reasons why they were able to move forward with this particular program, as well as the affordability of it.
Okay. I guess my second question was going to be the one that you asked of Cheryl, which I guess they were in Manhattan, the rents got too high, and now you're moving to the Bronx. That's a lot. We actually, I mean, I don't want to cross the threshold because we're talking about a group home, so I'm going to stay there. But we do find that communities like ours, I don't want to say that they're dumping grounds, but the rents are obviously cheaper. They're cheaper now than the South Bronx, for example. South Bronx is a market that's really hot right now. I say all this to say, what benchmark then does the state use for concentration? Because they sent us a list of all the sites in Community Board 12, and it's 13 pages long with at least 5 to 7 per page. So what sort of metric do you use to say, oh, that's too much, or that's not, or that's not enough? Because I'm sure if I did this by other community boards, maybe some boards don't have 13 pages, but maybe it's too expensive to move there as well.
Just basically what we do is the space we allow like a 0.25 mile radius. So anything that is in that radius, that's what we consider like a not so concentrated area. Anything under 0.25 will be considered a failed. It wouldn't pass saturation, and we wouldn't ask the agency to go forward.
So theoretically, there is a break point then. So like if in our district, anything that's within 0.25 miles of another facility would then not warrant another facility going there. Is my
Basically,
logic
yes.
okay? All right, those are the only questions I have. I'm good. Thank you, Carl.
You're welcome, George. Okay, thank you very much for coming. We'll discuss this and we'll get back to you, and then we'll make a recommendation to the board, general board meeting, which is the fourth Thursday this month. Okay, thank you very much for your.
Thank you
February
so much for
25th.
having us.
Bye-bye.
February 25th, 7:00.
All right.
We can say February 25th.
February 25th.
Full board meeting. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
We don't
Thank
have
you so
a we don't have a
much.
quorum tonight, so we can't vote on anything anyway.
Right. That's
All right.
understandable. Okay.
All right. Well, we
Thank you. Have a good
Hang
night.
on, George,
so much.
No,
George,
yeah,
let me ask a question. So I think because Mr. Brown is a new member of this committee, I think, and I guess me and my ex officio role, I guess it would be three of the, let's see, three, you're at 3 of the 6. So you're right. So we're under the 50%, because like I said, Deacon's not here.
Yeah.
Ms. Ortiz is not here. Mrs. Clark is not here. So I guess you're right. We're only at 50%. So we need 50 plus 1 for a quorum. So we can't vote on anything tonight. So I would imagine what'll happen is this may come before executive committee, and it can be discussed. I think, in my role, I will obviously listen to the chair of the committee and the district manager for their recommendations, and go from there. And I think that's, the best that I can say, but, and just go from there.
Okay.
All right, thanks again.
Do you have any questions? I mean, being that you're new to all of this, and this is your first health committee meeting, do you have any questions that you want to ask? I mean, I know I'm out of line because Mrs. Lanzano is the chair of the thing, but I mean, do you have any questions before he adjourns the meeting?
The
Well, no, we have
meeting's
one
not
more
going to be
issue.
adjourned. We have another section. Mr. Ruskett.
Okay, sorry.
No, sir, I have no questions. I was listening attentively. It was very good.
Okay.
Okay, then. Good night.
Okay,
Good night.
thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night,
Take care.
and we'll be talking to you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Have a
Bye-bye.
great night.
All right.
Take care, all.
All right. Ms. Ruska, thank you very much for your patience.
Of course. Thank you. Thank you very much for your time this evening. I
You
am,
have a wall that's falling down, huh?
we have a wall that's falling down. I represent Rising Brown, which was formerly known as Lincoln Watts Services. So you might know us by that name.
Lisa Watt, yeah, my grandson works with.
Oh, great. So we own the property at 225 East 234th Street.
Hey, that's my neighborhood.
Okay, it's between Kepler Avenue, closer to Kepler and Katona, kind of right where 230 East 233rd meets, or 234th runs into.
Right around the corner there, I know it.
Okay, so it's we own they're attached two-family homes that is the home for our mother-child group residents. So, and we've connected the two buildings internally. So we've broken the walls between, so we use it as one property. As I said, it's our mother-child residence. It has the capacity of up to 20 young ladies, pregnant or parenting teens who are in foster care. And so the program we usually have 10 moms or moms to be, and can have up to 10 or 12 babies. And what the program does is give them therapeutic services as well as life skills and how to be a good mom. We also have an on-site nursery so that the babies can be looked after with trained childcare staff, so the moms can go to school get a job, and become more independent. So most of the residents are over 17. Most of them are 18 or 19 years old. They are in foster care. So we really want to give them the supports and the way that we can break the cycle of foster care. Their babies are not considered in foster care because they are in the custody of their mom, so you know. So the buildings are between another adjoining two-family home and a private residence. And the private residence, which is closer to Kepler, is about 12 feet higher than our ground level. And so we have a retaining wall between the two, which is 8 feet tall, and it has a 5-foot chain link fence that holds up an enormous amount of dirt, among other things. And over the course of the years, we've owned the homes since 1998. Over the course of the years, the wall has begun to lean. And over the last 2.5 years, it has a significant tilt to it. So we're applying for city council discretionary funds through the council member, which was Andy Cohen's. So right now it's going through, as you probably all know, there will be an election at the end of March. And the Bronx Borough President's office. We are finally, in truth and in all honesty, we have applied for the past 2 years for city council discretionary through the borough president's office and have not received it. Over the course of those 2 years, we have actually used private funding that our organization has raised to brace the wall. So we've had an architect come in, our general contractor that does a lot of our work. We have 55 programs in 50 sites across the city and in Westchester. And the trusted general and licensed general contractor has looked at it. The bracing is going to hold, but it really needs to be repaired and replaced. So this evening, I brought it to you for a letter of support. What we're very concerned about is as a tall, and it's 7 feet away from the building. So if it were to collapse, it will hit the building. If it's a full collapse, we have a very good relationship with the neighbor on the other side of the wall, but we do know that the wall is on our property. It is our retaining wall. If it were to collapse, we are responsible for any damage to and repair of his property. We're looking around. We're getting the prices and bids redone from last year. But last year it was around $600,000. That includes,
I saw that.
Yeah, it includes the labor. It includes.
I just saw the 600.
Yeah, we're hoping, to be honest, we're hoping to come under that. But the city council capital funding has a threshold of $500,000. So we did look at that to say how low we could go. But to give a real accurate estimate, it's around $600,000 because it means taking down the wall, doing some reinforcement. We believe we have done some test drilling, and it does look like the foundation is good and we can reuse it. But it also means that we have to cart all of the stuff out. There is a small backyard. This is on the side yard. So we are anticipating carting and storing and doing it in sections so that our neighbors' landscaping isn't affected significantly. And then having to replace all that and hopefully not do, we have like some flagstone walking steps and digging steps, so hopefully that we won't do damage to that, but if they have to be replaced, and in honesty, that is where it goes up to the 600. If we don't have to replace it, it won't be $600,000. So
I have 2 questions. May I call you Nancy?
Of course.
One is, you mentioned the threshold. You're saying that you have to ask for more than 500,000 before you get a loan?
You have for capital, city council capital, it has to be at or above $500,000.
Okay, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, they may not award that, but that's the threshold.
Okay, I immediately blanched at $600,000 to support a wall, but we had a dog run here. Somebody wanted a dog run. They went to Home Depot. They priced it out. The fence for the dog run was going to be $2,000. She asked for $5,000. The city would not give it to us, but they did give us, what was it, $450,000? The people went crazy. It says $450,000. It's a nice dog run, but considering that, I can understand almost the $600,000. It's ridiculous. Okay, that
Is it excuse me, this is Jerome Brown. Is it the material, the reason why it's at $600,000?
It's the material as well as the labor, and again, the storage cost of while they're building it, because we won't be able to keep all the dirt and all of the other pieces of it on the property. So it basically is adding some more temporary shoring and bracing. It's a controlled demolition. I'm actually reading from my little thing here, so I apologize for not looking at you all. A controlled demolition of the existing wall. We're going to try to remove the chain link fence that's embedded and reuse it if at all possible. And then anything excavated out, we will need to be carted and stored and then returned to the property once completed. So the price includes reinforcing the footing and foundation, reconstruction of the brick and concrete, replace the fencing and the entrance gate that is faces the street. If we can't reuse the embedded chain link fence on top, we would need to buy more fencing, and then any kind of repair for the landscaping and our neighboring property, the neighbor's property. So that's why the price tag it is what it is.
I think that, excuse me, George, I think that's something we have to talk about as a community board, not this particular item, but the fact that if Nancy was able to get the price down to $300,000, they would say no. But if they said $600,000, I said sure. I mean, to me, that sounds ridiculous. Okay, go ahead, George. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. That's actually a very interesting proposition. I didn't realize that the city council jacked it up that much. But it's been a million years since I've been in the city council. I did have a question, Nancy, because I looked up the address on the building's website. So it looks like there was you put a job filing in to address the retaining wall. I used to work at the buildings department before I came here, and the reason I'm asking this question is because we would get a lot of complaints about retaining walls, and my understanding back then is that retaining walls are party walls. So they're just like you said, you broke through. You had two semi-adjacent homes, and you broke through the party wall. I would ask if you had. I was going to ask if you had filed with the buildings department to get all the proper, because the party wall serves as the fire line between the two homes, and they're fire rated, for protection. So I'm sure you did all that stuff. You did all the proper filings. I didn't look. I was just interested in the retaining wall. The reason I raise it is because I would imagine that if it's your two houses, I don't know how many homes this retaining wall touches, but anybody that it touches should have received a violation. And you see the violation you received, it pertains to the retaining wall, but it's a work without a permit because you braced it, because you were addressing it. I'm almost curious to think that if you called the buildings department and asked for an inspection, that they would give you a violation, and the violation doesn't pose a monetary thing, although I did see you did pay it, and you probably were advised to do so. But if you get it, your neighbor gets it, and some other people get it, then the cost doesn't have to be borne just by Leak and Watts. I think it's admirable that you're trying to undergo this, and I we have a retaining wall on a whole nother situation, and the fact that your lots are what, 50 feet wide each?
I believe so.
So are you replacing 100 feet of retaining wall, or is it just behind that one house?
No, it's 100. It's 100-foot long, 8-foot high.
All right.
On the western side, so it goes back 100 feet.
Does that retaining wall go into adjoining properties?
No.
Like it's just on your. But there's on the other side. So your home is on 224th?
224th, and this wall is between us on the western side of it, so it's going towards Kepler Avenue, and it's between us and the private home.
What's the address for the private homes? Is that 225th or Kepler?
I'm not sure. I can find that out for you. Because we're 225. Yeah. I think they may be 227, maybe. I'm not sure.
Okay. No, the only reason I raise it is because, again, I'm not trying to get the other neighbors in trouble or anything like that. But I mean, from my understanding, whenever an inspector wrote a retaining wall violation, it wouldn't just go to the one home, because that retaining wall is it's protecting your home, your private property from being flooded, but it's also protecting the property above from having a landslide into your property. So I would think that it would behoove whoever the property owner is there to fix it. And I would imagine that you guys have insurance, and that's maybe something insurance should take care of. I mean, have the adjusters looked at that?
So when the adjusters looked at it, it wasn't at the angle of lean that it has become. So we put the bracing up to make sure of it, to make sure we, a temporary bracing, so it's not in full violation. Yeah. I have to be honest with you, I don't know if we have talked to all our insurance on it to see. I do know that that when you look at the property lines, the wall is completely on our side of the property. So I have a sense that that's why we didn't approach the neighbor on this. And as I said, we've raised private money or used private money to put the bracing on. And if we have to, as an organization, find this money so it doesn't collapse, that's why we're going to city council, because it is a very large price tag that we don't have readily.
I would say don't give up on because $600,000. I mean, if you get it into capital funding, that's one thing. But if you don't get it and you have to take out that money or borrow it somehow, that's a tremendous amount of money in order to pay back for a retaining wall. Because again, it benefits your homes, but it also benefits the neighbors that are on the opposite sides of those homes, whether they're on 227th Street. They don't want to be hanging out in the backyard one day and then, slip and slide into your property. So that's why I say, retaining walls are like party walls with shared, like I have a party wall here because my neighbor's on the other side. So this is the party wall, So that's my only advice. We know that the chairman of our board is sitting here, Michael Burke. We were at the last borough president's meeting, which was the hearing for his capital projects. Have you already submitted to the borough president?
We said in our letter of interest, or intent to apply, and we are working on the pricing and the budget to submit it by the end of this month for the capital discretionary application.
Okay. All right. No problem. That's all I have. Thank you, Carl.
Yeah, you're welcome, George. You were thinking it was 227th? It's 234th Street she's talking about.
Oh, 234. I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just so you get a different picture.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's 234. It's 225, 234th.
Are
Yeah.
you at that? Are you there, Nancy? Because I'd like to take a walk over there.
I personally am not. I work out of our Brooklyn office, but I can set up a time for you to come. Someone is always there because it is a residential program, so we can set up a time for you to at your convenience to visit the property. That's no problem.
Okay, because I'd like to do that, just to, this way I could get a better picture to explain it to George, what's, because he'd be the building expert, yeah. ahead,
I did
Joe.
have a question. I'm sorry, I should have asked this of the other group. Nancy, when you when you did what you did inside the house, like the interior renovation, are there requirements for? I know yours is a completely different model because you're doing mothers and children, so they're not developmentally disabled. But I would imagine that it's still a social service. So are there requirements like fire sprinklers or anything like that?
Absolutely. We're licensed by the New York State Office of Family and Children Services, OCFS.
Okay.
We have annual fire inspections. We have all the wiring, sprinklers, all of that, and as well as square footage requirements.
All right, so maybe something called, not for this group, but for the previous group, that may be something, because they're going into an apartment in a private house. I'm just curious, because they're developmentally disabled, that there may be some requirements for safety, for fire safety and
Fire
stuff like that.
safety. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll check into that. Right.
Yeah. All right.
That's a very good point. You said there are 20 women and they have their babies with them?
The capacity for the program is 20 in total. So usually we have 10 moms and 10 babies or thereabout.
How long do they stay usually?
It's usually under a year. It's like usually 6 to 9 months, because they can be pregnant or they can already have had the baby. So we probably in the course of a year support 38 to 40 individuals. You know, some stay longer than others. Most of these young ladies don't want to go back home, so we try to get them an apartment and make sure that they can be independent and still provide for their child.
How do they do in general?
Actually, it's a very strong program and we've had a lot of success. I think a lot of it has to do with that the staff there are really, really dedicated. We do have 24-hour, shifts and things. And a lot of what we're very proud of is a lot of these teenagers who have been derailed their education by becoming pregnant have finished their high school and gone on to college, which we always think is huge, and are very supportive of it. We have a mentoring program with our staff and Junior League to help them get the soft skills to hold a job and have interviews and things like that. So yeah, it's a very impressive program, and it's really I think it's a lot due with the staff that is very dedicated to these young ladies.
Yeah, to be commended for it. I commend it.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's always one of my favorite programs to visit, because you either get a mom who's like showing off her kid, or a little kid who has to show you the most recent thing they've done, and so you look at refrigerator magnet pictures and things like that.
All right. So I have your telephone number through George. I will give you a call, and I couldn't just walk over there because sometimes I feel like taking a walk, and you're like 5 blocks from my house.
Oh, okay. As I said, staff is always there, but to be honest, now that a lot of the moms are being remote and virtual schooling.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that it's an okay time.
I'm gonna walk to yeah. Okay, fine. All right. I'll call first.
Sure. And I'll email the manager this evening just to say that we'd like to come by, and I'm sure they'll, as I said, they're always there. It's just a question of who else is in the building.
All right, Nancy, thank you very much for coming. We're going to do all we can to help you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome.
Have a good night.
Okay, good night.
Night.
Jerome, George,
Good night.
Mike.
Good
And just,
night.
I'll be talking to you about this home on 234th, and I'll take a ride over to Chestnut Street just to see what that is.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All
Good night,
right.
Mike. George, thanks for your help, George. Good night.
Oh,
No problem.
yeah, I really appreciate that. Are we oversaturated though? I think that was a question that both you, Mrs. Lanzano, and George was asking about the other facility. I mean, I'd rather that than these damn developers. But the question then becomes saturation. Are we oversaturated?
Well, I mean, if
George knows
well,
that, what happens is that they change the designations. This disability, one person has short hair, the other one has long hair, and they don't have in between. But because the hair is a disability, you could get two homes right next to each other, but they're different designations. That's what it is.
yeah,
That's our problem.
I would say that, you know, they were very straight with us, which I do appreciate. So according to, if I understood her right, the lady from the state, Ms. Joseph, was saying they're not in violation or we're not oversaturated because this facility is not more than 2.5 miles away from any other facility. That's I don't know what 2.5 miles is on in a mile, like, is that only one block or is that 2 blocks? You know, so I think that's to be questioned. But I think the more important issue, and I've said this before, but it becomes a very curious thing, especially now in the middle of the pandemic. And to Carl's point that we overspend money, they're saying that they're moving from wherever they are in Manhattan now because the rent's going too high. I don't know what the rent is, but they think it's cheaper to come to the Bronx. I've heard this before with Carl Heasley, as a matter of fact. And Ursula, if Ursula was still here, she could have relayed the story because I heard the story from her. And basically his point on the homeless shelters was that, oh, it's cheaper to buy in the Bronx, a warehouse or whatever, than buying it in the middle of Riverdale or in other communities like in Manhattan, because the real estate is a lot cheaper. So that's why, they're making decisions based on cost, and they're sticking them in communities of color where the real estate is a lot cheaper. And that's the problem. I mean, the only other thing that I will say is that despite all of that, and I guess it's relative because you're buying in the same sort of market, but real estate in the Bronx is super hot now. I mean, if I look at home prices in our neighborhoods, I mean, I see homes that are almost topping out at $1 million, and I'm just like, really, people are getting that kind of price? So if non-for-profits are having to contend with purchasing $1 million properties and they're not getting the reimbursement rate back from the city, I think, that poses the problem. Are they going to go further north now? Are they going to look into Westchester or Yonkers or other parts of and outside of the city because it's relatively cheaper to buy stuff over there? So I think, my whole thing was, well, if you had to pay more to be on Park Avenue, and if it was being done for equity's sake, I would say that it would still be cost effective for the New York City taxpayer. But, again, that, I don't know. For example, the list that they provided is 13 pages long. I'm sure if we looked at other community boards, it might not be as long. I mean, I'm just saying that out of speculation. I don't know that to be true or not because I don't have the list for the other community boards, but it's actually something that I want to raise with city planning because I think they should be taking these things into consideration, even if it's not a city-run facility. To Carl's point, these are state-run facilities, so they don't even factor what's going on citywide. So, right. You could have a homeless shelter, you could have a group home, homeless shelter, group home, another homeless shelter, another group home, and they would all be in compliance with one another because they're not looking at, the metrics for what they're looking to measure. Whereas we're looking at the whole thing. It really, I guess ultimately for us and for you and for me as citizens who live here and residents, it becomes frustrating because they don't care. They don't make the distinction between city, state, or federal run facilities. They just look at, oh, there goes another group home being built. They're not making the distinction that that's a state run group home and that's a city group home and that's a city run homeless shelter and that's a federal, because we have the thing close to home initiative, which is the prisons where we had on Bruner Avenue. There's a lot of different factors, but it is something to be explored.
30-30 Bruna.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, George, I trust your, you and Mr. Lanzano in this. I can tell you as far as the property values even here, the property value for this house is shot up significantly. You know what I mean? So now, Mom and I were laughing because I'm like, they're going to tax the hell out of us. And that's why they jacked up our property value. But now, and I think, George, you and I had this discussion privately about home prices. If we want to sell this house right now, I could sell this house, even though my grandmother probably, haunt me for the rest of my life. But, I could sell this house and move safely to Georgia and be set for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? If I were to sell this house. And so,
the prices they're starting to, and you raise an interesting point because they've risen so much. And in the Bronx, believe it or not, you guys pay more in property taxes than some other older communities like in Brooklyn, like Brownstone, Brooklyn. Right. They're paying less taxes because there's a property tax cap. You can only go but so many percentage points. So, and their homes are a lot older, whereas in the Bronx, our property assessments are newer because many of the homes were built in either the 50s, 60s, or 40s. So, the relative value versus a brownstone that was built in, the early 1900s or even 18 something. There is a disparate nature. And I know that the city council was looking at this. I don't know that they had the courage because once you start messing with people's property values and raising them or taking away from, people get all crazy. But the fact that they've shot up so much, you have a lot of homeowners that are very concerned that you're right, Michael, that people are going to be very concerned about what their property tax bill is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, ours is more expensive than it was last year, as I said, because I looked at what the valuation came in. I was like, what? And so, it's pretty significant. And so I'm like, I didn't know if that was a de Blasio thing or, what the hell was going on. But I mean, this house is worth a lot of money now. And so I think, it's pretty interesting because I think the ones that, to your point, George, that were the older houses were built along that, Bronx River corridor and here in this part of the Bronx. But, it is what it is. We'll see what happens.
All right. Well, I probably should have stopped recording.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. But I just